But we started the show with a Ring of Honor World Championship match. Ring of Honor, by the way, still without a weekly television show under the AEW banner. Chris Jericho beating Claudio Castagnoli, and probably the shock of the night, even more than the Paige debut, because I saw some people speculating that earlier in the day on Twitter. There was a report about her, and now she's in AEW, so... that was a great moment. We'll get to that, but I wasn't overly shocked because I kind of figured there might be a chance of that. Jericho winning the Ring of Honor Championship certainly took me by surprise. I thought it was a very good match. I think Jericho works best with people like Claudio. His best matches in AEW, probably have come this year, even more so than his initial championship run. He's had some really good matches this year with Eddie Kingston, not the barbed wire mess, but the first one of Revolution. The Moxley match I thought was great. The Danielson matches were very good. And I thought this was a really good match as well. So if he can kind of keep the bullshit to a minimum, I think that he's at his best in that way. But now he's the Ring of Honor World Champion. And there's been a lot of discourse about this online, Mr. Marceau. This is awful. This is great. Somewhere in the middle. Personally, I'm still indifferent towards it. I think it could have positives, and I think it could have negatives. And I'll get into each one of those pros and cons in a moment. But off the bat, I want your top takeaway here. I want your instant reaction. Chris Jericho is Ring of Honor World Champion. Yay or nay, or do you just not care?
I'd probably lean towards nay. I like Claudio a lot, and I thought he'd be the perfect person for Ring of Honor. I would say more nay as well. I just feel like the only reason Jericho won is just to say that he won the Ring of World, so you can just notch that off the record, I was Ring of Honor World Champion as well. Okay, like you said, it's not like they have running TV. It just doesn't fit. It just doesn't really fit Ring of Honor style. So maybe he's gonna pull off the sports entertainer thing. But I don't know. I just felt like Claudio was so perfect to be the champion or face of Ring of Honor if they ever do get off the ground. That like I said, I just feel like Jericho winning was just to say that he won the belt, not there was no real reason for him to win besides that one kind of saying that he won the belt. So I would have kept it on Claudio. Like I said, if they ever do get TV or start running as a brand, then I would rather have Claudio as a champion. But like I said, I just feel like Jericho won it just to put another notch in the belt. Nothing substantial will happen out of it.
Well, yeah, going off that Ring of Honor TV thing, two-part question for you. And my thing was, in seeing this, my initial reaction was, I feel like they did this not only to give Jericho another accolade, as you mentioned, but also because it might be more appealing to Warner Brothers Discovery or whoever in looking for a TV deal for Ring of Honor. So I ask you, do you think that might have played a factor? And also, that was the same reason that people gave as to why Claudio beat Jonathan Gresham for the Ring of Honor World Championship, because again, former WWE guy. Claudio is not Jericho. Jericho obviously is an objectively bigger star, of course. But Claudio was tailor-made more for that Ring of Honor style. I'll get into more pros and cons of this Jericho thing in a moment. But do you think the TV deal stuff was kind of a main factor as to why they may have put the championship on him, a lot like they put the AEW World Championship on him at first 3 years ago?
I don't think so. I don't know. I think it was more of a record thing than actually putting. Like you said, people were saying that when Claudio won, and then nothing came out of it. So, I don't know. I don't think so. I would just say I think it's more of a record thing. I don't think it's going to lead to TV.
Do you think that part of it as well is the fact that they're using this? And you mentioned it before. Jericho, the whole sports entertainment shit, I think that shit is awful, but I can see what they're going for with it. I've mentioned many, many times, as you have as well. The Jericho Appreciation Society stuff is just not my cup of tea. He's had some great matches, like I said. His in-ring work has actually been great this year with the right opponents, in the right circumstance and the right stages. Anarchy in the arena side, I thought that was garbage. But, he's the Ring of Honor World Champion now. Maybe he can have some good matches with, I say the Ring of Honor roster. I'm not even really sure what the fucking Ring of Honor roster is. The Ring of Honor Championships, the top two titles are currently, actually three. Wait, who's the Ring of Honor Women's Champion? Mercedes, I think she got hurt. So they have 5 championships, I think. They have the Pure, Women's, Tag Team, Television, and World. 3 of those 5, or actually 4 of those titles are occupied by people that were in WWE in the last couple of years. I know Joe was a Ring of Honor person first. Jericho certainly was not. Mercedes was just in WWE a year ago. FTR were in WWE a few years ago. So I'm not that guy. I don't want to be that guy, but it is interesting that they're putting all their championships on people, not that were AEW homegrown. Garcia is, but that came from WWE. But nonetheless, what was I getting at there? But Jericho is the champion. Do you think part of it, as you mentioned earlier, is the fact that They want to tell this story with him and Garcia he kind of shot him that look like, he wasn't really happy with how Jericho won that championship. It's not in the spirit of Ring of Honor to win a championship that way. Do you think they're just kind of using that as storyline bait to kind of further the story and further the feud between Garcia and Jericho?
It's possible, but I just don't think it needs the title. Like, I feel like the story, I feel like they've been teasing the story at this point. Why does Jericho have to win the title to, change anything? Like, clearly Garcia cost him a match a couple weeks ago because he's going to use a chair or, got involved. So, why would winning the championship would all of a sudden, spark their feud? I don't know. They've been so in and off, I don't know if I want to be a sports entertainer or pro wrestler. Those stories, honestly, I'm just over. I just don't care.
Well, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I just don't think it needs a title.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those AEW things where we talked about it earlier. They'll heat something up, like a story or a feud or a tease of a split, and then they'll cool it down, and they'll heat it up again, and they'll cool it down. And to me, it gets to a point where it just doesn't mean as much as it would have if you just pulled the trigger a couple of months ago. Not saying they should have done that with Garcia and Jericho already. I mean, I don't know. It's impossible to say until it finally happens. Because until it happens, I can't say. Because when it happens, I could say, you know what, the timing's fine. I still care, whatever. I'm not the biggest fan, like I said, of the faction anyway. The story they're telling, I honestly don't mind it. I think that's kind of cool. I know what you're saying. It doesn't need the championship. It's just another interesting wrinkle because Claudio was on the show, I guess. He wasn't really doing much. He had that match on Rampage with Dax Harwood. He won the championship 2 months ago. A very uneventful reign. I saw people saying, he had such a great reign. I mean, he was champion for fucking 2 months on a show that doesn't even have a show. And Rampage is basically Ring of Honor TV at this point. And they had Joe and Josh Woods for the TV title last week. I don't know. I don't think it's in a slight on Claudio. I think Claudio can get the championship back. I don't know. Also, do you think bigger picture, I understand you lean more towards nay. Honestly, does it even matter what they do with the Ring of Honor Championship or really any of the Ring of Honor titles until they get a TV show? Because I feel like at this point, it's just a floating it's really just a prop until they give that belt its own show.
Yeah, I agree. At this point, it's just a title, just to say that someone has a title if there's nothing like I said, there's no TV or anything, but I just also think it weighs down everyone else's title. When everyone has a belt, it just doesn't mean as much.
I agree.